Welcome to the program. We hope you are ready for a fantastic Thanksgiving as it is Wednesday before Turkey Day. So, Caleb, you got plans for cooking today or what's going on with you?
Doing a lot of prepping today. I live in a very, funny enough, I live in a very old neighborhood that's got like a local neighborhood pub, and tonight's the night where like everybody comes home, and so it's gonna be like I always go to the pub on Wednesday nights to enjoy the people rekindling and just listen to stories of the old days of this neighborhood. That's my
Yeah, good
Wednesday.
good stuff. I like that. That sounds good. I got to go find a bird somewhere and so I guess I will do that. So, welcome to the program as it is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Tennessee does play Vanderbilt on the holiday weekend as they usually do. Want to remind you that if you're in the real estate market, Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com, over 40 years of experience in that market, best prices, best service in the biz. And we're joined by the one, the only Jimmy Hyams, our Hall of Fame legend, who's nice enough to give us some time on a Wednesday. Jimmy, your favorite Thanksgiving side, sir?
My favorite Thanksgiving side is it's an oyster dish. It's like an oyster that my wife makes. It's really good,
We did
and
that.
so
My grandmother did that for years for Christmas.
yeah. Well, we
Uh,
do it. We do it for Thanksgiving, and it's one of my daughter's favorites too. So we really enjoy that.
all right, that
Guys,
sounds good.
random question because
Sounds like something just got thrown on Shanda's menu for tomorrow too, because that sounds awesome.
Jimmy, I know you're from Louisiana originally, so just I'm familiar with the South, but I'm not familiar with the coastal South. Is oysters as big in the coastal South as it is like in the Northeast in Boston and places like that?
Yes,
It
yes, it
is?
is.
Okay.
Yeah,
I did not know
Huge.
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that there's a good chance that the place where Jimmy Hyams and I used to work got a rather large expense report because of oysters in New Orleans covering covering a basketball tournament. Okay, uh, here we go. We're off and rolling on the program today, and we're excited to get going as we've got a lot to get to. I mean, it is still football season, and we're going to get to week 13 picks. Caleb's absolutely killing it. Also, key players for the Tennessee Vanderbilt game. I can't imagine Tennessee losing that game, but we'll get you a primer for those that don't know the Commodores, and I can't blame you. Also, the basketball balls, man, they're going to be a thing this year, and if you didn't watch them last night, you need to tune in. I know it's early in the year for a lot of our football fans, but that's a pretty special team, Jimmy. I want to get your thoughts on it more in just a bit, but you talk about excitement, athleticism, and I even heard. Well, I want to save that part, but it's an exciting basketball team to watch for sure.
Well, it is, and Dalton Connett certainly adds a lot to this team. What's funny about two of their games in Maui is that he was basically the best player in the first half. Hardly anybody did anything. The second half, some other players started stepping forward, but they've got plenty of weapons, and I think they have a chance to have a really special team. If they struggle in the postseason like they have in the past, I think it's going to come down to their inability to make shots, and that's what happened in the second half against Purdue.
Yep. Okay, we've got today's tough question. It is up on the YouTube page. Which senior would you most want back? And we've got Amari Thomas, Cooper Mays, Tyler Barron, and Wesley Walker. And that's how we want to start the conversation today, Jim, because they could use a lot of guys back. Let's be real honest.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of guys that I don't think uh, quite hit their peak because of injuries or whatever. So I want to run through these names, and there's one in particular at the very end, Keenan Pili. Now I know he doesn't have an extra year, but I want to get your thoughts. I know he's trying for it. Can he possibly get it? Because I know that you're really still tied in. So let's go to let's start with Javontes Spraggins. How big of a return would he be for the Vols if he came back with a rebuilt offensive line?
I think it'd be a huge return. I think any offensive lineman that they can get to return is going to help because they start a lot of seniors and they have a lot of seniors that are backups. And Spraggins is one of the best offensive linemen, so I think that would be huge. He has a significant knee injury. I actually asked him at the Knoxville Quarterback Club on Monday, was he looking forward to the draft? He said, "I don't know, man." He said, "I don't know if." Basically, he said, "I don't know if I'll be ready for it." He said, "I've got a decision to make here in the near future."
Wow, that's interesting. And then tailback has been a position of strength, Caleb, but there's one guy that kind of disappeared a little bit this year. What are your thoughts on Jabari Small?
I don't think Tennessee necessarily needs Jabari Small back, and I don't think he's going to come back, but I don't think he's going to enter the draft. I think Jabari Small is going to enter the transfer portal and find a spot he can play immediately and for
Wow.
his final season of eligibility.
What your thoughts on that, Jim?
I think Caleb may be right because he didn't get that many carries this year, and I actually think Dylan Sampson's a better running back. Could that be predicated on whether Jalen Wright turns pro? Would Jabari Small say, okay, I'll get more carries if Wright's gone? Perhaps he would look at it that way, but I would think if Wright comes back, Jabari Small would not.
You know what's funny is I hadn't even thought about Jalen Wright turning pro. I look at him, and if this is 20 years ago, I say he's not ready for the NFL. But we know now that running backs don't have a lot of tread on the tires. You might as well try to get that second contract as soon as you can. I wouldn't blame him if he went.
The interesting thing about that is the running back position in the NFL has been devalued. We've seen so many different running backs want 10 million plus and they can't get it, a lot of them. And so if it's devalued, do you turn pro early or do you go ahead and turn pro and get that second contract? I think you probably turn pro and get the second contract. And Wright's put himself in position to where I think he's not going to be a high draft pick. I think he'll be a middle round draft pick, but I also think he could be a good running back in the NFL.
Yep, absolutely. Now, Cooper leads the poll right now. Can you think of a player that could return? He does have a year of eligibility left, not named Brew McCoy, that could have a bigger impact on this football team next year.
Oh, when you threw that not named Brew McCoy, you snuck that one in on me. I think Cooper Mays is huge because they are losing a lot of offensive linemen, just like I think Spraggins is huge. And I think the offense was much better when Cooper Mays returned this season. Is there another guy that they need to return? Boy, that could have that kind of impact. I can't think of that person. I don't really think it's Aaron Beasley. You know, we've already talked about Amari Thomas, so I'm excluding him, right?
Right.
So
Sure.
I don't see somebody having a huge impact to the degree of a Cooper Mays or McCoy.
Jimmy, I mostly agree with you, but I want to name one name and you give me your thoughts on this. And I'm going to go on defense real quick. And that is Wesley Walker, who could come back. We saw the fact that, I'm sorry, maybe I'm harsh, but Andre Turrentine was a waste of a transfer pickup. That was there was a reason he wasn't starting at Ohio State. He's not cut out for Division I football. And he was horrible on Saturday against Georgia, like historically bad. And so is there a chance that do you think that Tennessee almost needs Wesley Walker back at free safety just to save their secondary from returning to where it was 2 years ago?
I'm leaning toward no, because I think Wesley Walker is an average football player. I think they have a whole lot of average football players in that secondary. And I think he's
But there's a difference between average and bad.
Well, they have enough bodies. See, they have some young players. I remember you, and they don't necessarily play safety, but I know you like the Matthews kid a lot, right? And they have,
yes.
Was it Matthews?
Jordan Matthews and then Ricky Gibson.
Yeah, and they have Gibson. They have Thomas. They have other young players that are better than Turrentine. So I think that whether they're corner or safety, I think they could plug somebody in and get the same production of Walker. The secondary is not very good, and I don't know that Walker makes that much difference because I don't think he's a special player. I think he's an average player.
I think you could say that about every player in their secondary, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought a couple of guys had the potential and the upside to be special, but I haven't seen it through this season. So, I mean, I don't know what case I could make for that. I have some pretty strong feelings on a guy named Elijah Simmons. That guy with his size-speed ratio, he should be destroying people. As one person within the program said, he should be throwing people in trash cans. I hadn't heard that one before, but yes, I definitely think he should come back. Now, what did they get? Did they get the guy who we've seen to this point who doesn't play incredibly hard nor physical, or do they get a guy who says, I got some money on the line? If they get that guy, then that's something different altogether.
Now, the last point you made is really interesting. If he's got some money on the line, There's a part of me that thinks that if Rodney Garner hasn't been able to motivate him by now, he never will. But cha-ching, the money might. But that would concern me a little bit. Simmons to me has been a big disappointment. I thought he would be much better than he has been. He's had some injuries. I don't know that he's been as motivated as he needs to be. But if he can get motivated and play with a little bit of fire, play with juice, as Spraggins calls it, I think he could be a really good player for Tennessee. But I haven't seen that yet.
Yep, I don't understand why he hasn't been a better player.
Do y'all think there's a chance he's too nice? This is a hilarious old. It's an old school phrase, but they used to always say you don't want choir boys on your team. Elijah Simmons is literally a choir boy. He's a singer, and so I mean, is him being a choir boy is that the problem?
It might be. It might be that he doesn't have that nasty streak or that meanness in him, which to a degree you need to have to play, in particular on the defensive line. That may be the issue, Caleb.
I remember working for Jimmy at the time, and a defensive coach told me the best linebacker, and this is a joke, okay? So nobody takes it seriously, but he said the best linebackers were beating his children. I'm like, whoa, and that surprised me, but he was dead serious. And you have to have a little bit of a mean streak. I'm not saying you got to go that far. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Enjoy life better when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and regular eye examination. ccteyes.com. ccteyes.com. Why don't you run through the rest of the names, and we'll give you a thought or two if you want to take over here, Caleb, on the rest of the names that could come back for 2024.
All right, so I'm going to name them, and you guys stop me. Well, don't stop me, but just after you hear them, tell me which names stand out. Because we mentioned Spraggins, Small, and Mays. Another offensive lineman, John Campbell Jr., can come back. Also, Dane Davis and Jackson Lampley can come back.
Let's address those three, Jimmy. I think Campbell is solid. I don't think he's great. I don't think Davis and Lampley bring you much back other than depth.
I would want Campbell back, and that would be the only one.
So you're thinking about this from, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're kind of thinking about this from the perspective of getting scholarships back, right?
Yes.
Interesting.
And yeah, I am. And I'm also thinking about, I think those players are very average players. I think Campbell's better than that. I think he's a solid starter. So I would move on and try to develop some of the younger linemen that I have, and also recruit some linemen.
All right.
And the thing about Campbell is Campbell's. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say real quick. The thing about Campbell has an issue where he's too raw at times. But honestly, left tackle is the one position where you can afford to be a little raw and not have refined technique, because just raw talent could get you by. All right. So on the defensive side, we haven't mentioned Tyler Barron or Omar Norman Lott yet. I think I'd want both of them back.
I definitely would.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We mentioned Elijah Simmons. All right, going to the secondary real quick. Danico Slaughter, and apparently, I believe Gabe Judy-Lally can come back too. But Danico Slaughter, Gabe Judy-Lally, Brandon Turnage, Warren Burrell. Of those, and Tamarian McDonald. I would want Gabe Judy-Lally back just for his maturity and leadership. But is it anybody stand out in the secondary outside of him?
Jimmy, let's pick 2 out of the 5. I'm going to take Danico Slaughter because I said at the beginning of the year he would be Tennessee's most improved cornerback and would be a standout player. So I want to be proven right. It's kind of like that Chris Winkie bet that we had many years ago that he would be a 4-time All-Pro. And I'm still waiting on that, Chris. Come on back. So I'm going to stick with Danico Slaughter just out of pure dad blame stubbornness. I gave Judy-Lally, though, I do really like because he's selfless. I think if he came out on a Monday of game week and say, you got to play corner, he'd say, okay. You got to play safety, okay. You got to play nickel, he'd play okay. I like his versatility. Turnage, Burrell, McDonald, they don't really do a lot for me other than depth. Do you?
I would want Judy-Lally back, and I would want McDonald back over Slaughter. I think McDonald's a decent player. He's found his role as a nickelback. I think he's sufficient. So I would take him. Slaughter's disappointed me. I thought he would be better than he has been. So I would take McDonald and Judy-Lally.
Nope, I completely agree. And the last one is the one that we don't know, And Jimmy's going to be able to give us some insight, I'm sure, into this, Caleb, whether or not he could come back. But I think he would be a huge pickup for Tennessee.
Which is Keenan Peele. People are speculating that he can try to get an injury redshirt and come back for another year. The question is, will he get it? And the other question is, will he want it? Keenan Peele's 25 and married, and there's rumors that he just wants to settle down.
So could he get the medical redshirt? Yes, he could. There are several 7-year players that are playing right now in college football, including one that Tennessee was going to play with Texas San Antonio, Frankie Harris. This is his 7th year. You get those years if you have injuries that knock you out for the season. And so I believe Peele could win an appeal. But to Caleb's point, he's 25 years old. He's married. I talked to somebody that knows him that said he is ready to pursue his NFL career because of his age. Now, on the other hand, how much would he improve his draft stock if he came back and had a monster year at Tennessee? Probably improve it a lot. But the other part is, when you look at his age, from what I was told, he wants to go ahead and pursue pro football.
Man, that's disappointing for Tennessee. I think that would be a monster get for the upcoming season. By the way, City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost thousands or more. CityHeatandAir.com recently worked on a unit of somebody that I know. Somebody else said you need a whole new unit, could cost tens of thousands of dollars. No, just needed the part, and they were good to go. All right, let's talk a little bit of hoops. Jimmy, what do you love, like, and have concern about this basketball team?
Well, I love Cadet. I think he's a tremendous player. I think he's their best offensive weapon right now. So I'm really high on Cadet. I liked what I saw in Tennessee's first game in Maui with Adu. He ended up with a double-double. He had 14 points. He had 11 rebounds. And now, I didn't think he played that well the first half, but I thought in the second half against Syracuse, he played really well. One of my concerns right now a little bit, and I hope I'm not saying this is a concern in 2 or 3 weeks, I don't like what I'm seeing out of Ziegler. He had 6 turnovers against Syracuse. He played out of control. Now, the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game, he played pretty well. Then he comes back, and right off the bat, he against Purdue, he has a turnover, and they benched him because he was playing out of control. He played better when he came back in. I'm thinking and hoping for his sake that's just rust from the ACL. I do think that Gainey is going to be a better player than he missed a ton of shots last night. Then he actually hit a couple of threes that were key for Tennessee. So I like that. I like Awaka. He gets after it. He's a really good rebounder. I think he's fearless. He did make a shot over Edey, the 7'4" player. So I like that. One thing that still concerns me, though, a little bit, and even with Canet and some of the offensive weapons they had some droughts along the way. And they should have had a bigger lead than they did in the first half. Purdue shoots 20%, and you're ahead by, was it 3 at halftime? I'm like, you're in trouble because Purdue's not going to shoot 20% in the second half. So that concerned me a little bit. And the free throws, my gosh, they were awful. They've been awful. The start of the Syracuse game and the start of the Purdue game, they couldn't hit a free throw. That concerned me.
I've got a weird theory on Ziegler. Okay, and this is before he got hurt last year. I think he kind of, because he fell in the right place at the right time, kind of became somewhat of a well-known name, if not a star, around Knoxville. And I wonder if he got a little bit of the big head, because since he became a household name in Knoxville, Jimmy hasn't been the same player.
Yeah, he was kind of a sympathetic star. People loved the way he hustled, the story about the family's apartment burning in New York and all the money that they raised. And he was very appreciative of that. But I don't, I mean, you may be right. I don't know how to crack into his head and figure out what's going on with him there. But he's not played at the level that I thought he would early. But again, I'm going to give him a pass right now because he's coming off that injury. And maybe that's impacted his play at this point. But they need him to play really well. And by the way, Vescovy didn't score a lot, but he does other things to help you. I thought he made some terrific passes against Syracuse, which helped when Tennessee needed some baskets in that second half. So, and rebounding, he'll get you 5 or 6 rebounds. So even at the games in which Vescovi doesn't score, I think he's helping you in other ways.
Before I get into this, just want to give everybody a quick update. So Tennessee beat Syracuse on Monday at the Maui Invitational, which actually is being played in Honolulu right now because of the wildfires in Lahaina, which just want to send our thoughts to everybody in Maui on the island in Lahaina. I know that's a devastating situation out there. They lost to Purdue last night, number 2 ranked. Or they lost to Purdue Tuesday night, 71-67, which has them advancing to the losers bracket to play number 1 ranked Kansas, who lost to Marquette after Tennessee lost to Purdue. So Tennessee is set to play number 1 Kansas. Jimmy, I think I had a lot of thoughts about last night, and I didn't really know where to go because first off, I don't think one of the biggest questions I had with Tennessee couldn't be answered last night, which is, do they have bigs that can bang with other bigs that could take over a game that's necessary, which, as you and I talk about, I'm big on the 3-point shooting, but you're not going to have the 3-point shooting unless you have a guy that can score inside and take guys away from the outside. Yep. We didn't get to see that last night because the refs totally took over the game. I mean, they called, Toby Awaka fouled out, Jonas Adu fouled out, Ziti, the best big man in the game, had 4 fouls. We all wanted to see how Jonas Adu would handle Ziti, and we never got to see it. So can we really read too much into last night's game, given how the refs took it over? Or is that a sign of, look, the refs are going to take over some games in college basketball, and Tennessee needs to show it can hang when that happens?
Well, that's a good point. The officiating last night I thought was abysmal. And even with Zach Edey, I thought they called 2 fouls on him that were just bogus. It was almost like Rick Barnes got a technical. So we're going to do some makeup calls here, which bothers me about college basketball officiating. I do wonder about that, Caleb. I pointed out Adu against Syracuse. I really like what he did in the second half. So he gave them some baskets. My concern the last several years for Tennessee is the lack of a consistent inside scorer. And I don't know that they have that yet. And it may end up being a walk instead of Adu. I don't know. But they need to find somebody that can score 10 or 12 points a game inside. And I haven't seen that yet. And I think you're right. Last night was hard to judge because the officiating was so bad. Is Tennessee good enough to overcome that? I don't know. It's kind of early to try to determine that. But I do think last night's a tough one to judge because of the officiating.
So as you can see, I'm on the road because I have the biggest headset that's ever been created by man. And my son,
you get that from Sterling Hinton or what?
No, I got that from my son. It's a gaming headset. Oh. So evidently I can dominate you at Fortnite or whatever they play now. So anyway, but we're driving to get the biggest headset known to man. And I hear Rick Barnes being interviewed by Bob Kessling. And I thought this was a really cool phrase in the pregame. He said, if we need to, we'll play 5 guards. And it wasn't necessarily that he would play 5 guards. It was just kind of like that feeling of, I'm willing to break from some things I did in the past because suddenly I'm 69 and I would like to make another Final Four. That's how I read that, Jimmy. Do you think that's pretty accurate?
Well, I think so. Now, he did actually, because I consider Josiah Jordan-James a guard, he did go with 5 guards against Purdue. He went with a small lineup.
That was after foul trouble, though.
Yeah, it was. He's kind of forced to do that. Here's what I find interesting about Rick Barnes. I've noticed that early in the season, he looks like he's willing to break from tradition. For example, Tennessee in an exhibition game might shoot 43s. And then as the season goes along, it's 35 threes, then it's 30, then it's 25, then it's 15. So he kind of reverts back to his old school coaching of basketball as the season progresses. So they start out with one thing and they end up with another. I don't know if he's willing to deviate that much from what he has typically done throughout his career.
Okay, well, let me ask you, if you had to bet a mortgage payment, will he do that? By the way, new poll on the YouTube page. What is your favorite Thanksgiving side? Broccoli something, squash something, deviled eggs, or Hyams oyster goodness? Right now, deviled eggs leads. Hyams oyster goodness is in second place. So there you go. And I'm making it tomorrow, so I may call you for the recipe. Do you think being 69 and wanting to make, because if he makes it, let's just say he wins a national championship, his career is viewed entirely different I know it's a championship, but with just one championship, Jimmy, when we
Yeah.
look back 15 years from now, it's completely different.
You know what? It kind of reminds me of Mac Brown, because he won a national championship, and people were talking about how at Texas he underachieved all those years. So at least he has that on his mantle. It would be Rick Barnes would be viewed differently if he had that. I will say this, and I don't know that he ever went public with this. I think beating Duke and then losing to Florida Atlantic last year, I think that really upset and bothered him, and I think it caused him maybe to second guess some of the things that he has done. Like, how in the world can we get this close, beat Duke, and then lose to Florida Atlantic? So I think he's probably more willing to be open-minded and make some changes because of that one game. And as you mentioned, he's 69. He's not going to coach 10 more years. So I think he knows that the clock is ticking a little bit, and he'll do what he can adjustment-wise, or at least I think he will, to try to get to a Final Four. Heck, try to get back to an Elite Eight. It's been forever since he's been to the Elite Eight. And, of course, we know Tennessee's only been to one Elite Eight. So I think he might be more willing to adjust and to compromise right now.
Let me ask you guys both. Caleb, let me start with you. Who, if he were to win a national title, who are his peers? Calipari just has one.
Tom Izzo.
Tom Izzo has a couple, right?
No, he's got one. He's got one.
Wow.
In 2000, I think.
That kind of changes everything, right, Jimmy, as far as the way and now he's not going to win 2 or 3 and be considered. Yeah, I guess that would be up in the realm of the multiple guys, Patino, Roy Williams, those type of guys. But one really would change how he's viewed. So, Jimmy, why do we think he might not revert to his old non-shooting outside? Do you just the age? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking that because. Look, he's very disappointed in Tennessee's postseason runs, although he's not going to say that a lot. But fans are disappointed, right? Okay, Here they go again. They have a really good regular season. They get to postseason, and they get upset by Loyola Chicago or somebody, Florida Atlantic. So I think he recognizes that, and I think he recognizes he's got to do something different in the postseason. What's the definition of insanity? Keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. I think he understands he's got to make some changes to get there. One of the things I hope that he does recognize, look, you need to have a good defensive team, right? I get that. But you also need to be able to score on offense. And if you look at the teams, like Bill Self, he's won a national championship at Kansas. The teams that advance and make it to the Final Four and then win it, they're in the top 30 in defense, but they're also in the top 30 on offense. You can't ignore your offense. And Tennessee wasn't even near being a top 30 team in offensive efficiency last year. So I think that he needs to understand, and I think he does, that they have got to be more proficient on offense if they want to advance.
Yeah, I want to jump in on a couple of things. So, Jimmy, two big things. I don't really care if Barnes plays Purdue close or if he beats Kansas or if he beats Marquette. No one ever questioned these Tennessee teams if they can beat the top 5 or best teams in the country if they can go to toe-to-toe. We know they can. We know this team has the talent. The question is, over a 6-game stretch in March, can they stay above the fray where they don't get caught slipping because of that lack of offense? I totally agree with you on that. And so even if they had beaten Purdue last night and if they beat Marquette and if they got to number 1, wouldn't answer my questions that I have about them unless they started shooting the ball well.
I agree with you. I remember, it was a few years ago, Tennessee played North Carolina. I think it might have been in New York, beat them by 20, right? And North Carolina won the national championship that year. So it's like, okay. Now, if I were to give advice to the Tennessee fans, which I usually don't, but if I were to give advice, I would say enjoy the regular season. Enjoy a win over if you beat Kansas. Enjoy the wins because the regular season ride is fun. Postseason ride is not so much fun. But if I were a fan, I would say, hey, I'm going to enjoy this win over Kentucky or over Kansas or over somebody else and try to have a good time with that and go celebrate really hard because in March, you might not be celebrating as much as you are during the regular season.
It's true.
Well, and part of that, I don't know if you guys
saw. And have some oysters too, yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw this Grant Williams interview. It was about 2 months ago. He was talking about conditioning under Rick Barnes, and I didn't realize how hard Rick Barnes conditions his players in the all season. And apparently Grant Williams was like, he purposely picks on certain players to do extra conditioning like during the season, and it doesn't stop. I think that I do think that wears on them in March. I do. I think that wears them down.
I've heard that theory that he needs to let up a little bit on the team, and so that they have fresh legs late in the season. That has been a criticism of him. I have been told, no, like I don't go to practice and all that, but I have been told that in recent years he's been better about that, lightening up practice, and you don't go at it hard for 90 minutes before a game. So I think he's gotten better about that, but I do think that has been an issue with him in the past.
If you could combine Jerry Green and Rick Barnes, you'd have the perfect coach. Jerry Green walks out there I know, 3 days before. I don't even know if I ever told you this. 3 days before the SEC tournament, and he just goes out there and throws the ball up literally and goes, well, let's just have 2 hours of street ball. And a guy that we know, a tall guy with a very deep voice, said, I can't believe this bleeping stuff. 3 days before the SEC tournament, and they're running 2 hours of street ball. And it was fun to watch, but that's all they did, Jimmy. They didn't work on anything fundamentally.
Well, and if you didn't like that, you could just go rent you a movie from Kmart.
Still,
I remember that comment.
Yeah.
You know, but to be fair, guys, I know stories of Steve Spurrier, who's a Hall of Fame coach, quitting practice early because he didn't want to miss his tee time, and he would tell his players to hurry up and finish his drill so he could get out of practice and go tee off. So, and he's a Hall of Fame coach. So,
Jimmy Elias says that Barnes gets a statue in Knoxville if he wins one. Well, if they put one of those up, they better put one of Philip Fulmer because he won a national title. Or is that a conversation for another day?
No, I would agree with that.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I'm the only one that I thought, okay, all right, we'll do that another day.
Yeah, I mean, they got statues of people over there that you might wonder about. But yeah, if you win a national championship at Tennessee, okay, Pat Summitt has one. Well, she's got 8 national championships, right? But she's got a statue. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay. Well, why do you think that hasn't happened?
I don't know.
All right, next week. I want to get into that then.
Okay, yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. Let's be nice.
Yeah.
We'll wait until next week before we start.
Poor guy's probably smoking his turkey. I'm about to say something bad about him. All right, Jimmy, have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Can't even begin to tell you how thankful we are and for what you do, and absolutely love what you write and being on the show weekly. So thank you very much. Best to you and your family.
Dave, I appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Caleb. Happy Thanksgiving to you, to all the listeners who appreciate it, and y'all enjoy tomorrow.
Yeah. By the way, your Hyams oyster goodness is tied for broccoli something. Squash something hasn't gotten a vote yet, and deviled eggs, which I could eat from 7:30 in the morning till midnight, is in the lead right now.
And sweet potato casserole, no support.
We got to push that up there. I can reset the poll at any time. Thank you, Jimmy. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, guys.
He is Jimmy Hyams. There we go. I love having him on. And when I watched that basketball team last night, I kind of wondered the same thing. How do you make sure this team is fresh? Don't you almost want March to be tomorrow? Because if March was tomorrow and the way they would match up against other teams, I'd kind of like their chances.
I still wouldn't, because again, I don't think they are cut out for. Okay, you play that smaller team that has 4 white guys and then one athletic big underneath the basket. You know those type of guys. You know those type of teams I'm talking about, Dave, right? That just all they do is shoot, and they get red hot shooting the ball. They have enough of a defensive presence under the basket that you can't match their offensive firepower. I still don't think Tennessee can do that when they get red hot. But since we mentioned it, Dave, tell me if I'm wrong on this. My brother texted me last night about this, and I just really thought about it. At any level in any sport, are college basketball officials the worst officials?
Yes. Yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, it's not even close. I think there have been times during the college football season that we've talked about officiating's bad in college football, and I think to myself, well, at least it's not college basketball. I mean, I'm serious. I could run out there and hold my own, and not as an official. If you gave me time to work on my conditioning, I could hold my own, and you wouldn't say who's the redheaded guy that doesn't know what's going on. And I've officiated 1 year of basketball. I've officiated a lot of years of every other sport, but I could go out there and hold my own, and you wouldn't be like, who's the idiot? I'm not saying I would do great. I'm not saying I would grade out perfect, but you wouldn't be like, look at that nincompoop. Who's the Teddy, the TV Teddy? that is in the SEC? Somebody help me with that. He's the guy who loves to be on TV and calls texts all the time. He's in the SEC. Teddy Valentine. You're Teddy Valentine, right? Am I the only one on the message board that doesn't know the guy who loves his TV time more than life itself? Look at me, no contacts and no glasses. Brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, the players that you need to keep an eye on in this Tennessee Vanderbilt game. Any chance for a letdown? We'll discuss 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
At sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
All right, if you started your company, you started your business, well, you need to be outfitted, and there is no question about it that Apex Apparel Group can do that job for you. Call Tyler at 865-919-3001, whether you need koozies, shirts, and we're going to be sporting some of the, they also work with TriStar, as you just heard about. We're going to be wearing some of the TriStar gear here shortly. Again, 865-919-3001, whether it's koozies, pins, whatever you need. Apex Apparel Group, design, brand, market your way. Unique products to promote your business with unparalleled customer service. You can click right down below. 865-919-3001. Call Tyler. Danico Slaughter, running afoul of the law. We have beaten up on Georgia players for reckless driving incidents. Tennessee's defensive back gets charged with reckless driving about 5 hours after the Georgia game. Big deal, small deal, no deal. And it happens to be the second Vol who has been involved in an incident like this. So get us updated, and then let me get your thoughts. And on the message board, big deal, small deal, no deal.
So yeah, Danico Slaughter cited for reckless driving just a few hours after the Georgia game. He follows Deshaun Bishop, Tennessee's running back, who was cited for reckless driving back on October the 29th. He was issued 2 misdemeanor citations by the UT Police Department during a traffic stop around 1 a.m. Sunday at the intersection of Cumberland and 18th. Cited for reckless driving and improper lane change because he drove over the median, which sounds like he was doing something stupid with this car like teenagers do. I've seen somebody try to, those like concrete medians in the middle of a road. My guess is he thought it'd be funny to like try to hop it. I've seen people try to do that, but that's speculation on my end.
Yeah, and here, excuse me, here are my thoughts. I don't think this is a big deal. And I don't think any of the incidents, other than the one that claimed someone's life at Georgia, was a big deal in and of themselves. I thought it was the culmination of all of them. So if this becomes a problem at Tennessee, then we'll continue to keep an eye on it. We'll monitor it. I don't think it is a big problem at Tennessee. And as a matter of fact, let's take a second to look at this football program. When has discipline been an issue? It hasn't. under Josh Heupel. If you get in trouble, you're probably gone, or it's something minor. And I'll defend Danico Slaughter for a second. It's 5 hours after you just got hammered by Georgia. You would have had an interception that could have swayed the game, but you got called for pass interference on that very same play, which negated it. I'll be honest with you. I mean, my vice sometimes is driving fast, and I'm not making excuses, and I shouldn't do it. And if I get pulled over, then I'll pay the ticket. But and I will give you I will tell you something too. Traveling a lot, which I've done this year. I accidentally drove down I pulled out of a hotel and drove the wrong way down a one-way street. I could have gotten the same ticket for that night or any of the other times when I've driven too fast. I don't have a huge problem with Danico Slaughter as long as it doesn't happen again, and as long as it doesn't turn out to be a handful of players.
Here's where it's a small deal, and not just because it's the second one. And I'll tell you exactly why it's a small deal. We just talked on the last segment, Dave. You talked about how much you believe in Danico Slaughter, and I think we all talked and agreed how much of a disappointment he's been this year. Right? He's dramatically underachieved from what we thought he could be.
Great.
And I would have agreed with you until me being a Grizzly fan watching John Morant last year. And because for those who don't know, the John Morant waving the gun was not the first incident with John Morant. There were a host of minor issues that kept popping up. While those issues kept popping up, you saw John Morant's game regress and regress and regress. And what I think what's happening is sometimes, Dave, I think your off the field incidents are tied to regression on the field or on the court because you're focused on doing things you shouldn't do off the court or field rather than trying to improve your game on the court. John Morant got his contract and decided, I don't care about upping my game anymore. And he had a massive regression last year, and the regression preceded the off the court incidents. And the first gun incident, what I thought was so disgraceful about it wasn't that he was waving a gun in a strip club, which is bad. It was that he was doing it after the Grizzlies lost to the Nuggets in a game to determine the number 1 seed in the playoffs, a huge game. And I'm like, do you not care that you just lost a really bad game and you played horrible and you're going to go do this? And I that's what stands out to me.
So you're saying you're telling me that you think, and this is a debatable topic, and I want to get into this, that off-field discipline can show itself in on-field discipline. I happen to think that's true. I don't think it's true 100% of the time. But I think if you look at the early 2000 Philip Fulmer teams, there were some guys that knew, James Banks, that they weren't going to be suspended and they could be told to run laps around the field, which James Banks was at one point, and he just said no and stood on the sideline and did air squats. So I think that affected his discipline on the field too. I'm using one example, but there are several players that knew in that time period you're still going to play if you're good enough, and it doesn't matter what you do off the field. And I think it made them less disciplined on the field. I think they're totally related. So I think it's a concern if it happens more and more. Again, I'm not overly concerned about it now, but the point you bring up is real. Off-field discipline and on-field discipline are connected. How strongly we could debate that, but there's certainly something to that.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, now to be fair, a James Banks and a John Morant versus Danico Slaughter. Danico Slaughter is not a big star, but what happens is a lot of times if you do this to somebody who's one of your better players, it filters down to the rest of the team, Dave, as you know. I mean, the Grizzlies now have major issues because you and I both know they should have suspended John Morant for the year of the first gun incident last year. They shouldn't have given him that 6-game suspension and fake rehab moment. And
okay, so you've got a Vanderbilt game coming up that you're going to win. Okay, you've got a Vanderbilt game coming up that really doesn't mean much of anything except a loss would be incredibly embarrassing for the program. Do you sit Danico Slaughter for a half, whole game?
Whole game. You cannot let this, because you talked about it, Dave. Once it gets out of control, you can't get it back. Look at just it.
Now, let me ask you this. I want to ask you the really tough question. Okay. You're heading into the Florida game, and this happens. A game that you're going to go to Gainesville, and at the time, you were favored to win, and you probably should have won that game. Are you sitting one of your most athletic defensive backs before then? Or, and I'm not going to begrudge you if you tell me you are you making a different set of rules because of the circumstances?
I think you still sit him. I think I think the
I'd
long
sit him
term.
for the. I'll be honest with you. I may be a bad person. I'd bench him for the first drive. Then he'd be right in there. Then he'd
I
be
think
right in there.
Look, there are just some long-term issues that you've taught me you can't get back. Kevin Sumlin sabotaged his whole career because he didn't discipline Johnny Manziel. Kevin Sumlin was a brilliant offensive mind. He's a great offensive coach. He had a system. He would still be at Texas A&M today. But you know this, Dave. He let Johnny Manziel get away with everything under the sun because he needed him. And don't you think that that's what wrecked him at Texas A&M more than anything else? His players knew they could get away with that.
Yes.
And yeah, and so I don't believe. Look, let me be very clear. Here's where I'm different from a lot of people. I don't believe in a strong, quick reaction to immediately dismissing players. I don't like coaches that do that. I don't believe in dismissing players from the team unless they keep repetitively causing problems. Because I think, so the whole, I'm tough on discipline, I'll dismiss my player from the team. I'm like, really? You're going to ruin this kid's life because they made a mistake? Don't do that. But there's a difference between not ruining a kid's life and not giving out any punishment whatsoever. Am I right? I do believe in quick punishments for mistakes. I don't believe in quick dismissals from the team for mistakes. And so, you don't want to do like Urban Meyer and say, oh, Brandon Spikes tried to blind a player in a game. I'll suspend him for a half just to send a middle finger to the SEC. And it's a half against Vanderbilt. And Urban Meyer, in the most sociopathic way, realized he wrecked the program and then he bailed on it before it was going to catch up with him. And so I think that, with the Nico Slaughter, you kind of have to sit. I believe even for the smallest infractions, I believe in 1-game suspensions and tough punishments. I just don't believe in, even for larger infractions, I don't really believe in dismissals because I don't think dismissing a player, unless you absolutely have to, it doesn't do anybody any good in that moment.
Okay. Would you suspend Nico Slaughter? I changed today's tough question, our poll question on YouTube. So you have to go to YouTube to vote. Would you suspend Nico Slaughter against Vanderbilt for reckless driving? Yes, the whole game. Yes, a half. Yes, a drive. Nope, all good. By the way, finishing second in our last poll was broccoli something and Hyams oyster goodness for your favorite side. Deviled eggs came in number 1. Oh, yeah. But go ahead and let's get your votes on that. The whole game, a half, a drive, all good. Now, let me take this a step further. There were times with Philip Fulmer that I thought, this is a major misstep in the way he's handling or not handling discipline. Would this be a major misstep in your mind if Nico Slaughter went out there and played the entire game and wasn't suspended at all? Or would it be just something you would file away? Would it be something you'd criticize Josh Heupel for after this weekend if Nico Slaughter goes out there and plays the whole game?
Yes. I wouldn't call it a major misstep, but Josh Heupel, when he wanted to make room for Joe Milton, dismissed Kaidon Salter for 2 marijuana charges. Now, it was 2, but what's worse, weed or reckless driving? Reckless driving.
You would get into the argument that he's a quarterback, but I tend to agree with you. Yes.
Yeah. So I would that's my one issue. Now, I will say with Kaidon Salter, decision making as a quarterback, why are you carrying your weed out with you in public? Why are you not just smoking that in your room if you want to smoke it? But that's a different story. But it's a small one, but it is an issue. The Fulmer thing, I think the final straw, and I remember this distinctly. We had him on yesterday. I wish we could talk to him about this, but the first time John Adams called for Fulmer's firing was when Fulmer didn't dismiss Britton Colquitt from the team. Remember that? When Britton Colquitt had the DUI. And Dave, you were tight with the program. Did that send, what type of message did that send that Britton Colquitt wasn't dismissed from the team after it was like his 3rd DUI, wasn't it? And he wrecked a car and he ran from the scene and
yeah, and he was suspended for 4 games. I don't know. You're picking the toughest one because that was towards the end when everything was going pure idiotic. I mean, it was just like it was hard to fathom the cause or effect on either side of that. So, but let me ask you this. We are talking about a guy who at the beginning of the year, I said had the best upside for Tennessee as far as a defensive back. We're talking about a guy that does have another year of eligibility remaining. You might not just lose him for the Vanderbilt game, you might lose him for the whole year. And I'm talking about next year, 2024. He might get mad and just say, I'm out of here. Is that a factor in your mind?
I think this is a very easy situation because I think Danico Slaughter has not performed to the level that he should be performing at. He should have beaten Tamarian McDonald out for that starting job, that starting nickelback job this year. Well, I know Gabe Giuliani played nickel. McDonald sometimes played cornerback, but they switched him out. Danico Slaughter was in the game last week because Tamarian McDonald was hurt. Danico Slaughter was significantly worse than Tamarian McDonald would have been out there.
So you're being really honest, which Josh Heupel could never come out and say this. You're saying I'm suspending Danico Slaughter, knowing that he might bolt in 2024, but if he were Deion Sanders, I would not suspend him for Vanderbilt.
I'm saying this is.
Oh, look at him!
Wait, hear me out.
That's where I stand. That's where I stand.
Well, but Dave, they're connected. If he were Deion Sanders, he would not have been getting a reckless driving charge that night. That's where I'm coming from. I think off-field discipline, lack of discipline, creeps into your performance on the field and how well or poorly you play. James Banks was an anomaly. I mean, he was lazy, but he switched to receiver and was Tennessee's best receiver in 2003 because he was just the most freakishly athletic god, I think. Like, he had godlike athleticism. If he had any sort of a work ethic, he might still be in the NFL today, wouldn't he? I mean,
I'd have to count up the years, but he was one of the probably three most talented, just raw athletic ability the guys that I covered. Papa J says suspend Herring for not playing his gap.
Y'all leave Herring alone. It's not his fault. He's stuck in a position that he's not naturally meant to play.
No, that's true. He needs to be playing defensive end. But I'll tell you what, he might want a suspension because it seemed like all he was doing was running around chasing Georgia players last week. He might be tired. Hit the like and subscribe button. Go ahead and vote on our poll question. Would you suspend Danico Slaughter against Vanderbilt for reckless driving? 43% are with you. They say yes the whole game. And then a couple people saying yes a half, yes a drive. 29% say nope. We're all good. All right. That's the way you want to run your...
I got to say, I agree with Travis. Look, yes, it's easy. Sometimes you set an example when it's easier to set an example. He hasn't been that good this year when you're playing Vanderbilt. I mean, you can, now look, it's funny. I brought up the Rick Barnes thing. There is a level of this. Rick Barnes has the philosophy, and I think it does work. Sometimes you got to come down on your best player just to send a message that if he can come down on him, he'll come down on you. Bobby Knight, have you ever heard a story about coaching the Olympic team in '84 when Michael Jordan that played like the most perfect game possible? And Bobby Knight's like, I had to figure out a way to come down on Michael at halftime so all the other players wouldn't get relaxed. And so he went in and he's like, hey, Michael, you're not setting enough screens. And so
yeah. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. What if Danico Slaughter comes to you and he says, hype, as the players call Josh Heupel, I made a mistake. It is an honest mistake. And I would really like to right the ship. I would like to play this week. I would like to play in the bowl game. I'm not going to opt out for the NFL, and I'm coming back in 2024. Can we put this behind us? Is there a way he's not going to specifically ask, but is there a way he could talk his way out of this? And it's brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership, experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, making your children safer one school at a time, workplace too. Go to heraldgrp.com to learn more. Highly trained former servicemen and women that are highly trained in protecting your workspace or your children's school. Herald Group Security Solutions. So if he came to you and said that, hat in hand, would that change your view of suspending him for Vanderbilt?
I'd sit him down. I'd say Danico. Or Nico, if you go by that. I don't know what people call him. I don't know.
Big Neek, I think, is what he likes.
Neek. Big Neek? Okay.
I don't.
I would say we can put this behind us. You sit on that bench against Vanderbilt and show me you can support your teammates. And then you focus on improving because you didn't play to the level you need to this year. And if you focus on reaching your potential after this, I can play you in the bowl game, and there's no way you'll lose a starting job next year as a senior, as a senior with another year of eligibility.
One day, Caleb Calhoun is either going to raise the best behaved children or the most resentful children in the world, because it's conversations like that do make an impact. Trust me, I've been there. And they look at you like, that's not really the answer I wanted, but you packaged it just right. No, I'm fine with that. I could handle that too. I would suspend him somehow, but to me, a drive is fine as long as, and we don't know behind the scenes, is he a troublemaker on the practice field, all that stuff. We don't know that, but based off what I know, I would suspend him for a half, a quarter. A drive or a quarter, not a half. Let's get to the 5 Vanderbilt players you need to know. And maybe Clark Lee needs to know them because this is not a very good football team. Let's go through these guys, and that's the head coach. I'm gonna let you pick which one stands out, and then I want to get to the Vols that we need to know for the upcoming game. By the way, I want to thank our friend Banks and Jones, criminal defense, personal injury, car and truck cases, DUI defense, play to win, Tennessee's trial attorney. He actually goes to trial. Most don't. London Humphreys for Vanderbilt, wide receiver. Jaden McGowan, wide receiver for Vanderbilt. Nate Clifton, any relation to Chad? Defensive end. Langston Patterson, linebacker. Will Shepard, wide receiver. It doesn't take a brainiac to figure out you've got 3 wide receivers on this crew. Why is that, sir?
Because the only way Vanderbilt could beat Tennessee is if they air it out in the passing game. And I didn't even name the quarterback because Clark Lee is applying annoying gamesmanship and not making it clear if he's going to start AJ Swan or Ken Seals in this game. Swan Seal. Anyways, so I'm going with receivers, and they're all different types of receivers. So London Humphreys is a true freshman who's got 413 receiving yards on there. He actually has a bright future. He's really come on strong late. So I have him because he's kind of the underrated, like overlooked guy because Will Shepard is their best receiver who I have number 1, who leads the team in receiving. So I felt I kind of had to put both of them. Jaden McGowan, from a matchup standpoint, is the guy that's most likely to give Tennessee issues because, Dave, what has Tennessee been horrible at the past 3 weeks, particularly because of Elijah Herring? But they've been horrible at covering your kind of utility. What do you call a player who, yes, he's maybe listed as a wide receiver, but he's more like a utility player where he could take some carries. He could, catch balls in the flat. He might line up in receiver. I call him like a utility receiver. Not necessarily a slot.
Yeah, I can.
Like how Tennessee would have used D. Williams if they had ever gotten him in on offense.
Yeah, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Or kind of how they used Alvin Kamara or a Marshall Faulk type. Yes. That may be going back before your time.
Now, Jaden McGowan is not Marshall Faulk, but
no, he is not. That would be a game changer. By the way, Smoky Mountain Red says, hearing Lee is on the hot seat, who the hell are they going to get that's any better? I don't know. I mean, I think he is on the hot seat, but man, I tell you what can you do at Vanderbilt? And it's only going to get tougher. They're going to have to play Texas and Oklahoma every once in a while. Smoky Mountain Red also says that Franklin was hitting the lottery. He was. He beat a bunch of bad teams, and they scheduled to get to 6 wins and get bowl eligible. But would they trade for James Franklin? Absolutely, they would. I don't think that there's any question about that. Okay, so let's get to the Vols that you need to keep an eye on.
Sorry, I just had to mention a couple other things with the defense, with the players real quick with Vanderbilt. But McGowan, by the way, Jeff Demps is the best comparison for Jay McGowan. Remember Jeff Demps at Florida?
I do. Or you could maybe go Percy Harvin as well.
Not going that high. No, I couldn't name.
Well, no, I'm not going that high either. But Jeff Demps was like a poor man's Percy Harvin, so this guy's like a poor man's Jeff Demps.
Okay, there we go. All right, so
at some point we're absolutely destitute with this guy.
So now on defense, Nate Clifton has 5.5 sacks. So I think he could be a factor. Langston Patterson is do at everything linebacker, 66 tackles, 8 tackles for loss. CJ Taylor is actually a superstar defensive back for Vanderbilt. He could go pro, but he's going to be hurt this week. So I don't think he's going to play. But that really hurts Vanderbilt because if they were going to have any chance of an upset, CJ Taylor would definitely help that. But yeah, he's not around. So that's kind of a big deal. So, all right. Sorry. I just had to mention those.
That's fine. Let's take a look at the Vols and the ones that need to have a big game on Saturday for Tennessee to not only win, but go out there and dominate. It's Vanderbilt. Roman Harrison, number 5. That name might surprise some. Roman Harrison. Why do you have him on your top 5 list of all?
Well, this is senior day, and I'm naming people who are going to be out of eligibility after this year. I just feel like because you're playing Vanderbilt. If Tennessee was like other schools and had a big game on the last week of the year, like had like a Florida or something, I would go X's and O's. But because you're playing Vanderbilt, I think this is kind of like you're like old school, like make it count for the seniors type of game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So if it's Georgia, Roman Harrison's not making the list, and Caleb isn't as lovey-dovey.
Right, exactly. But this
Okay.
game is like, this is the game where you hope you can put Rudy in. And so,
That's right.
um,
Speaking of Rudy, we'll get to him later in the list. And then you had Aaron Beasley. Boy, that I know you're not crazy about him, but I thought he played better for the most part this year. That'd be a good guy to have back. Ramel Keaton, Jalen McCullough, and then Joe Milton III is number one. What will the response be like in Neyland Stadium to Joe Milton III as he does his last run through the tee?
I don't think Tennessee fans are awful enough where they'd like boo. I think it'll be a lukewarm clap. It'll be kind of like, thank you for your service. Look, Joe Milton finishes his career. It's not the worst senior year a quarterback has had at Tennessee. That's not like that. That's not maybe not beloved, but not hated. I mean, Dave, this is a little bit before your time, but Jimmy Streeter, people liked Jimmy Streeter, and he never did better than 7 wins at Tennessee. And I think it wasn't like he was Jared Garantano, who I think actually it's not Garantano's fault. He was playing in just a horrible situation, but Jared Garantano was throwing interception after interception. It's not Tyler Bray, who I think is a disgrace because he just wasted his talent because he was lazy. I think Tyler Bray was better at throwing beer bottles at cars. Remember that story?
Yes. Oh, I remember that story well. That was right after I think Jimmy broke that, who we just had on. I remember the being it's officially a law term. It's called IOW. Are you familiar with that
No, I do. What is
transgression
that?
against the law? It's idiot on a wave runner. And I've owned wave runners, one that would go 72 miles an hour. And I know how to be an idiot on a wave runner, but really you don't need to. It's fun all by yourself out in the middle of the lake. You don't need to get close to anything. So I thought that was almost as dumb as throwing bottles at stuff. I mean, that's a way to really hurt yourself. If you go 45 miles an hour into a boat, you don't have a seatbelt. You're just going to fly off of it and get really, really hurt.
Yeah, that's the that's how you get the Murdaugh family scandal that happened in South Carolina.
I guess my wife got into that. I've completely skipped over that. Smoky Mountain Red. So is Franklin not as good as once thought? I could see that. Penn State has been on idle with him. Here's what I think it is. I think Penn State has to face off against Ohio State and has to face off against Michigan, and those two teams are just much better programs as a whole, especially without a guy named Paterno. Before everything went south, he brought a lot of credibility to that school. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah, but his last
Paterno
like
could
20
walk
years, they were underachieving because Paterno wasn't even coaching.
I agree, but Ohio State and Michigan weren't quite as good at that point, year in and year out. I think he could walk into a lot of Pennsylvania homes and win a kid over, even if he was looking at Ohio State and Michigan. Is the point I'm making. Still to the end, I thought he could do that. Not the bitter end. I think have you heard of the Peter principle, Caleb? I know it sounds funnier than it is. But have you heard of that term? Okay, it's the Peter principle, and it's nothing like that you're thinking. And I'm really disappointed by your reaction. The Peter principle is a principle that states a person is competent at their job. They earn a promotion to a position that requires different skills, and then they fail at that. I think it's the Peter principle with James Franklin. I think James Franklin, talking about his Peter principle, I think that he could get you. You're such a child. I think that he could get you to 6 wins at Vanderbilt by scheduling bad non-conference opponents, and the SEC was down to some extent, other than Alabama at the time. But I don't think he can get you to a championship, no matter what school is he at. That's my Peter principle, and I'm sticking to that.
So there's another layer of this. And actually this is I have to tell you guys this because I covered a lot of the Penn State scene right after the wake of the Paterno scandal in 2011. And it should be easy to recruit the state of Pennsylvania, but Dave, I can tell you there are enough people there, even in that state, that are horrified with the way Penn State's alum reacted to that scandal, and they don't.
Okay, okay. I don't want to, for obvious reasons. I don't want to mix the scandal with the Peter principle. Okay,
Well, no,
Seriously.
I'm just
Okay,
trying to
so-
break
but
down
do
why
you-
Penn State has a ceiling now.
Okay. But do you agree with what I said that James Franklin has a ceiling? If he got, let's put it this way, if he got the Ohio State job tomorrow for whatever reason, I don't think that it's a guarantee he would win a championship. If he got the Georgia job, if he got the Alabama job, I don't think it's a guarantee he would win a
Maybe not in
championship.
Alabama, but
As a matter of fact, I think he would be a 9 or 10 win
okay,
coach and get fired.
maybe not Alabama, but Ohio State, Georgia, or LSU. I tell you this all the time. Those three schools, anybody can win a championship there. Those are the three schools because, okay, James Franklin may have a ceiling. Is this ceiling lower than Les Miles' ceiling? And Les Miles managed to win a championship at LSU.
That's a fair point.
And also,
or Ed Orgeron.
Yeah. Or,
If you met two guys, if you hung out with two guys and you had a beer or a coffee or whatever, and it was with Ed Orgeron and James Franklin, and that was on let's say a Monday and a Tuesday. Wednesday, you would say to yourself, definitely James Franklin has a better opportunity to win a national championship than Ed Orgeron. Yet
Ed Orgeron
did.
Exactly. And by the way, Ohio State, every coach at Ohio State, like dating back to since I've been watching, had multiple top 5 finishes in Big Ten titles. John Cooper had a couple Big Ten titles. And he's like,
Powell alum, by the way.
Really?
Alum.
He went to Powell. I did not know that.
Got his PhD after 3 years of PMS. Powell High Diploma, Powell Middle School.
So
I tell that joke over and over. My wife hates that joke.
Well, okay, so Jim Tressel, we agree, is better than John Cooper. We agree Urban Meyer was better than Jim Tressel. We think Ryan Day's worse than Urban Meyer, maybe worse than Jim Tressel. All 4 of them have Big Ten titles because it's so easy to win a title at Ohio State. I think Penn State is a tier below. It should be as easy, but Joe Bertono decided not to coach for 20 years. And then he also decided not to do other things he should have done. And the culture of Penn State, Dave, I can just tell you that living out or spending a lot of time out there, there are great athletes, particularly in the Philly area in Pennsylvania, that because of the way Penn State fans behaved after the Sandusky scandal, never want to be a part of that. I know people who a lot of people that I knew that graduated from Penn State that were ashamed of their degrees and just kind of hide it. It actually is almost you go to a job interview now, Dave, and you say, I got my degree from Penn State. People up here are like, oh, Penn State. Like it's that bad, not because of the scandal, because of how the school reacted. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, if that's not the most embarrassing reaction you've ever seen to a scandal, the way Penn State fans reacted.
No, it was absolutely terrible. I agree with that. And it was troubling the way they reacted to it and the way they backed Joe Paterno in the face of so much evidence was absolutely bizarre. The evidence is in with fantastic cider. The original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains Tennessee Cider Company. Use the promo code HAT, that's HAT, to receive some free swag with your cider order. Available most anywhere in the U.S. tncidercompany.com, tncidercompany.com. So James Franklin compared to Josh Heupel, Butch Jones, Jeremy Pruitt, and Derek Dooley, and I'm going to throw Lane Kiffin in there as well. Where would he fall if you rank those 5 coaches?
Third. Josh Heupel and Lane Kiffin are better than him. He's better than Butch Jones and Derek Dooley. I mean, it's that's pretty obvious for me. But Butch Jones is bowl bound, guys.
He is. And somebody accused me of clickbait for making fun of him wearing the bowl bound shirt. Let me clarify that if that person happens to be watching again. I know that they give out shirts to all of the bowl bound participants in like the MAC and the smaller conferences. Don't wear it.
Yeah.
Say, no, I'm good.
You don't wear it as the coach yourself.
No, don't be proud of going to a bowl, and don't let your players wear it either. Don't be proud of going to a bowl when the school you took over did so 8 of the last 10 years. Don't wear it. Say, I am good. You can keep your generic bowl shirt that you're trying to sell online somewhere because that's the only reason you would produce it. I don't even know that it had Arkansas State's name on it. Don't wear it. Say, I'm good. They come to you on the field after. They say, hey, coach, can you throw this shirt on? No. Go straight to you-know-where. I'm not wearing it. I should make a bowl game. Portions of the program brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. We want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Am I wrong, Caleb, to say, I mean, at a school that's been there 8 of 10, I wouldn't wear that shirt publicly?
No, you're not wrong. First of all, even if you won I don't care what accomplishments you get. Like, until you win the national title, I don't think you wear shirts like that as a coach. Like, did Fulmer wear an SEC East champion when Tennessee finished 11-0 and beat Vanderbilt? No.
You know what's funny is that was a big debate at the time. Are you a champion? Like in 2001, should they get championship rings for winning the SEC East? And I'm with you, absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, Fulmer did believe that, and then he changed his tune later. After he retired, he's like, winning the SEC East is the equivalent of winning the SEC title from back in the day. I remember him saying that, and I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not the equivalent of what winning the SEC title was. But yeah, I mean, I think that you set your expectations. And you're right. If players and fans want to celebrate something, fine. But you as a coach, your job is to deliver the results, not sell the results. And I think that, I understand there's a little bit of selling going on for recruiting, but look, let's be honest. Is Butch Jones selling this for recruiting, or is he selling this for himself? He's selling it for himself to try to pretend that he's done something amazing here. And it's,
Yeah. I mean, I think let's look at bowl trips for what they really are. If they're going someplace cool like Miami for the Orange Bowl, and I can tell you firsthand that the Orange Bowl provides all kinds of gifts for the players and all kinds of events that they can go to. Well, that's cool. But no kid grows up and signs his scholarship papers or is 10 years old and thinking about college football playoff and said, boy, I hope everything works out in my career and one day I get to go to that Liberty Bowl. That would be awesome. I mean, nobody says that, do they?
Nobody. But
Liberty Bowl's
by the way, kudos to speaking of the Liberty Bowl, Fred Smith just donated $50 million to finally do upgrades necessary for the Liberty Bowl. The city of Memphis was debating over whether or not they should invest in the FedEx Forum or Liberty Bowl. And I'm like, do FedEx Forum. You got to protect your pro franchise. But Fred Smith is helping to make up the budget gap. So, but
I would prefer they not fix it because I don't want the Liberty Bowl to be viewed as any nicer. Because when we start going to bowl games, which maybe this year, I don't want the Liberty Bowl to be in the mix. I'm sorry.
Well,
I know it's your hometown. And I love the ribs and I love the fried catfish. But 48 hours of the Liberty Bowl is Liberty Bowl coverage is about all I can do.
Well, no, Liberty Bowl is never going to get to that level. I thought Memphis should have torn down that, and the university is about to own the stadium. I thought they should have had a smaller on-campus venue anyway.
But could it surpass the Music City Bowl?
I think it's already better. It's already more high profile. Oh no, I think it fell behind. It could take back from the Music City Bowl. It could. And remember, the Liberty Bowl was actually one of the more it's one of the older bowls. It's one of the more elite bowls. The only reason that stadium is still in existence is because the city wanted to protect the Liberty Bowl every year, as opposed to just letting the school build an on-campus venue. And it's like, why are you putting so much into saving this bowl game that has devalued so much over the course of 25, 30 years? I mean, Bear Bryant, this isn't the same Liberty Bowl where Bear Bryant coached his last game. And so yeah, I totally agree.
No, it is not. Portions of the program brought to you by our friends at the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure that you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2 T's, Hemp House Chat with 2 T's.com. You can order from anywhere. Use the promo code HOOKED to get 10% off. Promo code HOOKED to get 10% off. Also, I want to be sure and mention it is close to Christmas time, so we got our Black Friday sale out already, and it's on the Celebrate 98 book, so you got a lot of options. We've still got the autographed hardcover and soft cover by Fred White. We also, if you want to buy Christmas presents for your significant others, and I know you have a lot of Tennessee fans in your family, we've got a 6-pack soft cover that you can purchase at a substantial discount. Same thing for the hardcover, so we can take care of you there as well. So you can get Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind the Tennessee Vols 1998 National Championship for as cheap as $18.99, or if you want to go several presents, you can get about a 50% off value on the soft cover books, and they make great stocking stuffers, and we've got the hardcover as well. So certainly check that out. We'd greatly appreciate that. You just go to offthehooksports.com, and there's a Celebrate 98 series there, or you can just go right down below. Support our sponsors and our book sales. We greatly appreciate that. So, all right, coming up, we're going to have week 13 picks because we're going to be off stuffed on Friday and not talking about the Peter principle. So we'll
Wait,
save
I'm
that
sorry. I
for
just have to
another
show
time.
Travis's just.
Now, okay, can we do? Okay, that's pretty good. Now do Butch's Peter principle. Okay, Butch, please. Can we do this? I got a question. Can we do this? Can we pull up the picture I sent you about Teddy Valentine?
Oh yeah, sure.
Can we pull that up for just a second? TV Teddy is his nickname, and I'm surprised you haven't heard about him being
He
such
looks so
a college
mischievous in
basketball
this
exec.
picture. Like he's just up to like taking somebody's like great moment away from them. It's like I'm about to ruin someone's
Okay,
NCAA
so
tournament.
I'm gonna pull this up here.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. There's Teddy Valentine. We've all seen him. We all know he likes to give the hard tech sign because he's mad and he's angry because being an official is difficult, I guess. But Caleb, officiating in the NCAA, especially basketball, is an issue. Teddy Valentine will make some bad calls this year. He'll make several, and he'll want to be the center of attention. You've said before that you think that college football officials should be full time. I could go either way. I think you can do a great job without being full time. The problem I have is that too many college basketball officials and NBA officials, which you and I both like the NBA more than probably a lot of our audience, like to be the center of attention. That's my problem. I think Teddy Valentine likes being the center of attention. You should not want to be noticed whatsoever. Smoky Mountain Red saying he is all for show and not a ref. I agree. He thinks he's part of the circus coming to town. He thinks he's either the elephant walking around or he's the clown or whatever he is, but he thinks he's part of the show, and that to me is very disturbing.
You know what's part of it? I never thought about this, but what do you think? Yes, NBA refs just have an ego. They just have a Joey Crawford. Remember when he ejected Tim Duncan for just laughing on the sideline? Like Joey Crawford is the most egotistical, egomaniacal official in any sport possible. The NBA ref. And do you think there's a whole, maybe they're trying to get noticed because they're trying to get hired by the NBA because they are part-time in college and something like that? I never thought about this for refs, but think about it this way. How many college football programs or NFL programs, Dave, have you covered? And I know you have, where an offensive coordinator did not make the obvious call, but tried to get creative because they wanted to try to get noticed for a head coaching job. That happens all the time, doesn't it? Where offensive coordinators go out of their way to get creative.
I think it happens at every Butch Jones press conference.
You think
I think he's always looking for the next job. I think that's why he wore that shirt. I think that, yes, I think he's one of those that tries to manipulate the situation into being better for him than he is for the situation. Does that make sense?
Perfect
So,
sense.
like, yeah, if he uses Tennessee's a bad example because that's a destination job, but if he uses Arkansas State as a stepping stone, that to him is a success more than he leads Arkansas State to unprecedented heights. By the way, Smoky Mountain Red said that Teddy Valentine's the Gary Danielson of refs. Between the three, I'm just curious, and anybody else that's out there, as a Tennessee fan, who should you hate most? Who should you dislike most? Is it Teddy Valentine? Is it Butch Jones? Is it Gary Danielson? Or anybody else?
I think the hatred of Gary Danielson comes from. This drives me crazy. People think Gary Danielson is an Alabama homer. He's been covering Alabama while they've had their dynasty. What's he supposed to say? No, this isn't a good team. I mean, ever since he's been calling SEC games, Alabama's won 7 national titles. I mean, Dave, what are you supposed to say on that? I think sometimes we think that there's bias to great teams for being great. No, they're just great. And the bias follows them. I mean, there wasn't a Michael Jordan love fest that people say there used to be in the 90s. No, Michael Jordan was just that dominant when he played. There wasn't a bias to Michael Jordan. He was just the best player in the NBA and won 6 rings in 8 years. I mean, it's the same with Alabama. And people can't when it's college football and the rivalries are so passionate, people can't stand that. And honestly,
okay, I'm not going to play the game the way it's originally designed. I'm going to change it a little bit. But there's this game and you have 3 options. And maybe you've heard about it before when you talk about 3 different people. So Gary Danielson are in this, and Teddy Valentine is in this, and then Butch Jones is in this. So dinner, marry, kill. You have to choose. It's not the traditional. It's just dinner. Okay. All right. I'm not in your Tinder world in your age group. So it's just dinner. It's not like the traditional game. Dinner, marry, kill. I would go dinner with Gary Danielson because I would go dinner with Butch Jones if he has to be honest and answer questions. And I would go. I guess I would go marry Gary Danielson.
I'd
So
marry
I'm
Gary
talking football.
Danielson, do dinner with Teddy Valentine, and I have to be honest with you.
Let's not even.
I have to be honest with you. I would absolutely. I would. Yeah. I don't want to say the phrase because Butch Jones would be the type.
No, don't say
Butch
it.
Jones
Don't
would
say
actually be the
it.
type to sue me on this and be like, because he's so thin-skinned. But I know Josh feels a way about Derek Dooley, and I think you do too, because I think he was so pompous. But Dave, I have such disdain for Butch Jones. I mean, I have ultra disdain more than any other coach. One, because I think he's just so incredibly stupid. But more than that, I think it's because he's so thin-skinned. It's just the level of thin-skinned and the level of lying he did to the media. Just I took it on a personal level that, like, when I was covering Tennessee at the time, that I just despise him so much.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Customer service still matters. State Farm agent Don Self and his team take customer service seriously. For well over 40 years, they have built their business and reputation on taking care of their customers in Collegedale, Noodlewa, as well as the greater Chattanooga area. Don and his team pride themselves on making sure you and your family won't have any surprises at the time of the claim. Customer service still matters. Don Self, your friendly neighborhood State Farm agent for the greater Chattanooga area. Anybody else? I mean, surely there should be somebody else on this list. What about if we just did the coaches, where you had a dinner, marry, kill, and you got Dooley, Pruitt, Butch?
Okay, that's actually easier.
My dinner would be Pruitt, because the one time I talked to him, I was like, he really knows ball at a high level, and I was pretty impressed. He was one of the first that ever brought up the concept of edge rusher. He was like, I don't care if you have your hand on the ground or not. Just bring pressure. Do what you need to do. I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Why does the defensive end on a passing down need his hand on the ground? He doesn't. So I guess I'd marry Jeremy Pruitt. I guess I'd have dinner again with Butch Jones, because it has to be an honest dinner and he has to answer my questions. And then we'll just let Derek Dooley do what he needs.
I think you have the Josh factor. I think because, and you and I covered Tennessee at different times. Dave, do you take disdain over the way how pompous and arrogant Derek Dooley was in media? Does that kind of annoy you a little bit with the way he was?
Nah, because I was pretty pompous and arrogant at the time.
Yeah, but you were good at your job. You actually do.
Thank you.
So no, I mean, for me, it's like, I would do a dinner with Derek Dooley because he is smart, and I could listen to some lectures for him for like 30 minutes, whatever. I would marry Jeremy Pruitt because I don't think Jeremy Pruitt is arrogant, and I would just what you said about Butch Jones, I would do, because I just cannot stand him, and he's such a liar.
Elias says it. Ladies and gentlemen, Off the Hook Sports. We'll have our picks up next. It's been a wild and woolly show right before
I'd marry Lane Kiffin over all of them, though, by the way, but he'd cheat on me a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'd have to go to the doctor and get penicillin. Stay tuned. 2 minutes Off the Hook Sports.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctieyes.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor, that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place, with a taste that makes you say, "Give me 3 bottles of the good stuff." Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Welcome back to the program Picks, as we will have those coming up here momentarily, and certainly appreciate you. I want to take a second to tell you how thankful I am for those that have helped build this community, and it continues to grow. We've got exciting announcements, including Ron Slay, who will join us each and every week coming up into football season. And boy, I heard Stevie Hamer on the game last night in Hawaii. We might have 2 basketball guests. We'll talk about that with Caleb Calhoun. But for sure, we wouldn't be here if not for you. We wouldn't be here if not for our sponsors. So in this time of giving thanks, I want to thank you very much for being a part of what we do, and also want to thank all those that have purchased the book, and also want to thank Caleb Calhoun for being fantastic. Caleb Giroux, yeah, he's pretty good too. Now he's been all on top of recruiting. We appreciate them. We have all kinds of new additions to the program and the page off thehooksports.com. So I actually slipped up and on Veterans Day forgot to say something. So I wanted to make sure and go ahead and do that now. And now we've got your picks. So Caleb Calhoun, how are you doing to this point on your picks? Let's get an honest answer. Don't tell me you're 90% or something like that.
I don't lie. You guys can all track them. Last week I was 12.
That's what I'm gonna do with my free time.
I was 12-10 overall. I was 12-10 overall last week, but I was 2-3 on my best bets. So I'm now down to 130 and 114 on the year, but 21-21 on my favorite bet. So I'm losing money on my best bets, but I'm making money overall. So now we dive in, and I'm going to come back this week. Thanksgiving, man. And I want to be thankful this week. Let's go.
All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and do that. And a reset on our poll, as Danico Slaughter, about 5 hours after the Georgia game, was arrested for reckless driving. And man, this is a tough crowd. That you agree with Caleb. I say I would suspend him for a drive. The question is on the YouTube channel, and you can vote there. Would you suspend Danico Slaughter against Vanderbilt for reckless driving? Yes, the whole game gets 38%. Yes, a half gets 38%. Yes, a drive just 6%. And nope, all good, 19%. Let him continue to give up touchdowns. All right, Caleb, what's our first
I'm not
pick?
going to drive on the road with some of y'all.
Exactly. All right. So, Caleb, what do we got? First pick, as we give you your picks, and I'll tell you why Caleb may or may not be correct.
All right. So we're starting on Thanksgiving, and I think this is college football's most underrated rivalry. It's my favorite rivalry to watch, and it's the Egg Bowl. It's actually the greatest spectacle.
I love the Egg Bowl.
It's so much fun. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I think Ole Miss covers this year. It's a 10-point spread. They cover, even though it's at Mississippi State, and this game hits the over. The reason I think they cover, Mississippi State's quit on the year because their coach is fired. And also, Ole Miss wants revenge over last year. They were upset by Mississippi State last year because they all thought Lane Kiffin was leaving for another job, and it was Mike Leach's last game at Mississippi State, and Mississippi State won. I think Ole Miss is just going to blow them out of the water this year.
Really miss Mike Leach as a character.
I do.
That we look back at it over the year.
I do.
That's a shame, because he would have said 2 or 3 interesting things this year that we would have had some fun with. What's next? I think Ole Miss plays well and wins easily.
All right. So next, and by the way, just so y'all know, I'm going against all the BetMGM models this week and the FanDuel models. Many of the models I check where they lean one way, and I'm going against all of them because Dave, rivalry week, I think, is so unpredictable. It's as unpredictable as week 1, isn't it?
It's almost as unpredictable as the bowl season.
It is. And so the model is almost all models are 75% that Missouri covers the 7.5-point spread at Arkansas. I think Arkansas covers. I think Arkansas is going to make this a game because Missouri had a hard-fought win last week. As you point out, they pulled out all the stops against Tennessee 2 weeks ago. Arkansas's at home. And Sam Pittman is the type of coach that you brought up. You play hard for if his job's on the line. So I think Arkansas is actually going to cover. But I love the over in this game, over 54.5. I think both teams are going to score a lot of points.
What's the money line on Arkansas?
I have no idea what the money line is. Let me.
What's the spread? And I can tell you ballpark.
The spread is Missouri 7.5. I think Arkansas covers that.
So it's probably about $1.80. I'll take Arkansas to win this game. That's my lock pick of the week.
Wow, that's your money line. All right, love it. So
take the money line straight up.
Another Friday game. Oregon State. Look, Oregon has got to. If Oregon loses, they don't go to the Pac-12 title. The college football playoff's still on the docket. Oregon State just lost out on their chance to reach the Pac-12 title game last week by losing to Washington. They put everything in that. This game's at Oregon, so even though it's a 13.5-point spread, Dave, I think Oregon's gonna cover because I just don't think they're gonna blow an opportunity to go for the Pac-12 title. And also, just want to make the joke since I'm not covering them this week, but Oregon State found out about Michael Penix's Peter principle.
Very good. Very good. So Michael Penix, if he had a Peter principle, it would be that he's a very good college player, but not a good NFL player. That's what Peter principle means. I feel like if I keep driving home the definition of Peter principle, then it becomes less lurid because right now Caleb is taking this like a total 12-year-old. All right. What do we got next?
All right, here we go.
Besides middle school for you.
Well, I didn't go to PMS. So
That's true. You didn't have 3 years of PMS, Pablo.
So all right, Ohio State, Michigan, the game of the week. Michigan's favored by 3 at home. I'm going Ohio State. I think if I was, and I'm going to take a step further. If Ohio State doesn't win this, Ryan Day should be fired on the spot. I am that.
Yeah.
Ryan,
What about just shoot him in the leg?
No, that's reserved for punters only, Dave. Okay. But
well, then Paxton just punts with his other leg.
You mean Jackson Ross?
Jackson Ross, him too.
You're right. No, I think Ohio State has the most. I think Ohio State's the most talented team in college football this year, and the NFL draft is going to bear that out. And they can't lose to Michigan 3 years in a row. I don't care that it's at Michigan. I got the under because Kyle McCord, they're a little more ball control than they were under C.J. Stroud. But I think Ohio State is going to win this game, and I'm going all in on that. And if they don't, Ryan Day should be fired. I'm very strong on that.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
All right. So, I'm sorry, what were we going to say?
If he ever loses to Michigan State, you do shoot him, though, right? Just like
I'm not calling for the. You've asked me which coaches I would kill and if I would shoot coaches. Like, I'm not trying to get sued, okay?
I got that. Yeah, I got that from Adams. He said just shoot him, and it just. At the time, 20 years ago, I thought that it was 15 years ago. I thought it was completely inappropriate. And now, for some reason, I'm older and I think it's the funniest thing ever.
Oh, Lord.
And don't mess with John because he might or might not have an AR-15.
All right.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Okay, so Kentucky, Louisville, even though it's
he does.
Even though it's at Louisville, and I actually think Kentucky covers this game. It's a 7-point spread because Louisville's been lucky to get by every single game. And if Mario Cristobal had 2 brain cells to rub together, Miami beats them last week. And so I think Kentucky's going to cover. I got the under 50.5. I think Mark Stoops is going to make this an ugly, ugly game. I want to run down a couple others, but just give me your thoughts real quick on that.
Yeah, let me just give you this thoughts real quick. So we're talking about Michael Penix and the Peter Principle. Daniel's nice enough to say we're bringing the wood today. All right. I agree with you on that game.
All right. All right. So next,
losing focus on thinking about deviled eggs. I'm not going to lie.
Next is Texas A&M LSU. I think I would not bet on this game. I'd run from this game as much as possible, but I think Texas A&M covers the 11-point spread, and I got the over 66.5. I've got no explanation for it whatsoever. I'm just taking that shot in the dark.
Yeah, this is one I would stay away from as well too, because LSU doesn't have nearly to play for what they thought they would have to play for at this point in the season.
Exactly. I'm skipping Vanderbilt, Tennessee for now. I'll get back to that in a second. But Alabama, Auburn. Typically at Auburn, you pick Auburn to cover in this game and make it a game. But after last week in Alabama, 14.5, I think they cover because I think Alabama has to win some style points to make sure it gets into the college football playoff. Nick Saban's going for those style points this week. He's going to try to win this game by 40. And I think.
Yep. I could see that. By the way, Elias, pardon me, says best bet of the week I see is Arizona minus 10.5 at Arizona State. Somehow people have not caught up to Arizona. Yeah, you have any thoughts on that?
I think Arizona's been in a bunch of hard fought wins week after week after week, and then this is rivalry week, and they may be taking time off. And so, I think you could see them. I think the reason that spread so low is the state rivalry week. You could maybe since Arizona State's bad, Arizona might try to sleepwalk through this game after all the fight they've put in the last few weeks, and that's why I think the spread is that low. But I do like that one, Elias. That is a good one. As far as another three other SEC ACC matchups, Florida State. I got Florida plus 6.5 just because I don't know what to expect with Florida State without Jordan Travis, and I got the under. But Dave, that's another one because you don't know what to expect. You stay away from that all day long. And
Yep, this is. I agree with you. This week, opening week, and bowl season is a good time to keep your wallet in your pocket.
it is.
What else?
All
You
right, so Georgia Tech, Georgia. I actually have Georgia Tech covering the 24-point spread because Georgia's on the road. Georgia Tech's not bad, and Georgia they're about to finally play down to an opponent again because they've beaten 3 straight ranked teams and they're ready to take a week off. So I think Georgia Tech's going to cover. Got the under in that one. South Carolina, Clemson. South Carolina +7, the over 51.5. I don't just have South Carolina +7. I think South Carolina. Wow. Okay, I see that.
Yeah, don't read that I put on
I
the
think
screen. Whatever you do, don't bet on milk.
I don't think South Carolina is just going to cover. I think they're going to upset Clemson at home this week.
Oh, wow.
So my best bets before I get to
with Shane Beamer on the hot seat.
I do. I think Clemson put a lot into beating North Carolina last week, and yeah. So all right. So best bets. I got you.
Let me make this argument. Better for Tennessee if Clemson wins. Because I think you want Dabo Sweeney to keep that job as long as he possibly can.
Yes, because the program is sliding. Well, it's not the program's sliding, so you're fine Clemson being where it is. You want South Carolina to get wrecked, basically. And so I'm with you on that. Better for Tennessee if Clemson wins. So best bets. Utah's going to cover versus Colorado. It's a 22-point spread, and I still think that's the best spread to cover of the week because I think I think Colorado's quit on their team more than any team has quit this year, Dave. Honestly. And
how could they possibly quit? All those kids have loved Colorado for like 10, 14 years. I mean, they didn't go there just as some sort of mercenaries to show up for another guy that's a mercenary. What are you talking about? You don't think they have deep love for Colorado?
No, and I can also tell you that Boo Carter's not going to Colorado now. I'm pretty sure that ship has sailed.
I'm guessing, and I don't mean this as an insult to younger people, but I'm guessing that half of the new players at Colorado this year did not know where Colorado was on a map before Deion Sanders called.
They also didn't know how outmatched they were because they thought they actually had something, and they were very outmatched. And they've quit on the season, and so Utah's going to cover easily. Kentucky covering at Louisville, the +7. That's my top dog to cover. My money line pick is NC State is an underdog at home to North Carolina, Dave. I think NC State's going to pull off that upset. And that's by the way, for those who don't know, Philip Fulmer was really pushing for Dave Doran to be hired at Tennessee before he became athletic director about 4 years ago. Just kind of a funny tidbit. 2 more.
Speaking of the Peter principle.
Yeah, I agree. 2 more before I get to Tennessee. Penn State, Michigan State, the under on that one. I think James Franklin is going to have a slog fest in there. Penn State wins like 24-7 or something like that. Also, by the way, just for fun, Nebraska and Iowa, the under is at 26.5 right now, which is hilarious, or the over under. But I'm not betting on that. Lastly, Missouri, Arkansas, the over 54.5, I think is the best bet on the over of the week. Now for Tennessee, Vanderbilt. Dave, Vanderbilt's coming off a bye. Tennessee has not beaten an SEC team by more than 21 points this year. They're riding low because of the last 2 weeks. I think Vanderbilt covers a 24-point spread in Knoxville this week. I do.
I tend to think so as well. This Tennessee team has bounced back from every significant loss that they have faced, with the exception of last week in the way they bounced back or did not bounce back against Georgia. So I would argue with you, had we not seen what we saw the last 2 weeks, that I thought they were a bounce back team. They played well after each of their losses the previous 2 years, with the exception of the past 2 weeks. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Remember, right down below, you can take care of your Christmas shopping with Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind Tennessee's national championship team. Reduced pricing for Black Friday, so you can get one. You can get one signed by Fred. You can get 6 that you want to hand out for holiday gifts, and we would greatly appreciate it. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Let me leave you with this. Evan asked, does Tennessee basketball get it together tonight? Do they beat Kansas?
I actually think they will, but I don't think it matters. What they do against Kansas, as I said earlier in the show, I don't care what they do against top 5 teams. That doesn't bother me. I know they can beat top 5 teams. I don't know if they can withstand. I don't know if they have the team that can withstand a red hot shooting team in March, though. And that's not always a top 5 team. That's sometimes a 13 seed that just gets hot.
Yep. He's Caleb. I'm Dave Hooker. Off the Hook Sports have a fantastic Thanksgiving. And again, all of those out there, we're so thankful for you for growing this into something that we're pretty pleased with. So thank you. We certainly appreciate that. And yes, Travis, I can get you a Caleb autographed Celebrate 98 book if you would like.
I have very
He is
bad handwriting, so I don't know if you want my autograph.
Well, it could be like Peyton Manning. By the way, if you have Peyton Manning autograph memorabilia from his time at UT, that was probably signed by a sports information person. So Caleb could just work on my autograph. Did you know that they had 3 people trained to sign Peyton Manning stuff because they had so much stuff coming in?
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Sad though, isn't it? If you're looking on your wall and you're like, oh, I got that Peyton Manning Citrus Bowl MVP picture, and he
Citrus
signed
Bowl
it.
MVP. Now I'm just reminded of the story.
Yeah, and the hell with that. Some guy named Bob that was 21 years old probably signed it. He's Caleb. I'm